It's a rock sticking out of the sea on the edge of the civilized world. To reach the island of St Helena, you first need to make your way to the port in Cape Town, South Africa, and board a ferry for a crossing that lasts 5 days. The RMS Saint Helena is the only boat authorised to make this journey. Michel Donquin Martineau, the honorary consul of France on the island, is returning back. Today, St Helena is one of the most isolated places in the world, and this boat is the only way to access it. It's the same route that was used by Napoleon Bonaparte. Back in 1815, it took the French emperor 3 months to reach the island he'd been exiled to. Today, the boat sails at 15 knots, or 28 kilometers an hour. The crossing is almost a routine for Michel. He's been across these waters a good 50 times at least.
You
just have to accept it for what it is. Because there's no internet and there's no other means of communication, it really is a great way to relax.
The vessel is carrying 8,000 tons of cargo, supplies for the island, residents returning home, and a handful of tourists who each pass the time in their own way. And then one morning, St Helena appears on the horizon, to the relief of those on board eager to reach dry land. But Napoleon was not that enthusiastic when he arrived here in the 19th century.
He goes up on the bridge and he looks out. Everybody is watching and waiting for the historic moment when he utters his first words. But he doesn't say anything, not a single word. He goes back to his cabin to think, and that's it. That's how the legend begins.
Jamestown Bay is the most accessible place on the island, which still remains a colony of the British Crown. The capital is a quiet little town with just 2 streets. Cynthia Lias didn't come here to follow in the footsteps of the former emperor. After studying in Marseille, she found a job on St Helena like no other. For 2 years now, she's been working for the National Trust, an organisation that looks after heritage and the environment.
Are these all the little trees that you've replanted?
They're endemic. They're gum trees. You can only find them here. All of the island's natural habitat has been destroyed by man. There's been a lot of erosion. The original habitat and vegetation has been completely destroyed. We want to bring it back.
You must take particular care of these then.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most beautiful gardens in the world.
For 3,000 kilometres to the west, there's nothing but ocean until you reach Brazil. It was this isolation that distressed Napoleon the most, caricatured here by the British as a giant sitting on a rock, gazing into the distance. We move on now to Longwood in the middle of the island. The house in which Napoleon was imprisoned was guarded by 3,000 soldiers. We're 10,000 kilometres away from Paris, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, on the Tropic of Capricorn, and yet this piece of the island is French territory. We meet once again with the island's honorary consul, Michel Donquin Martineau. Since 1987, he's been in charge of St Helena's national monuments and sites.
Everything has been restored. The wallpaper was made the same way it used to be made by a French company based in Tours. We were able to make this room look exactly as it did back in 1821.
At Longwood, Napoleon spent a lot of time dictating his memoirs to the Count of Las Cases, who was one of the 30 people who made up his entourage. He told him stories of his victories, his losses, and reminded him of his place in history. In this bed on May the 5th, 1821, Napoleon died of stomach cancer. He was 51 years of age. The paintings on display here capture the historic moment. It was the end of a long exile for the emperor, during which he had to suffer and watch English troops climb this hill every evening to surround his house until dawn.